Good morning, Dirty Dozen. It's time for a mid-season review. So what I'm going to do today is break down the road so far and what Fantasy Pros info states as of yesterday as our rack and stack for best teams. And I'll give a little feedback using my own judgment as far as what needs to happen for you to do well to maybe even get into the playoffs. So just know that I might be wrong. I might be right. Speaking of wrong or right, we're going to go over what we talked about after the draft. Fantasy Pros, their recap after our draft, they stated from worst to best that it would be Reapers, Big Blue, and then shipping up to Boston, Yankees, Texas Keg Standers, The Boys, Multiple Scoregasms, Knuckles Deep, Beats by Ray, and Buffalonian. And I might have forgotten about my wife in there. She was number 4 at Fantasy Queens. I skipped her. My predictions was Reapers, Big Blue, shipping up to Boston, way off on that. The Boys, Texas Keg Standers, Yankees, Multiple Scoregasms, and then Ed. It's got to be CMC that just it like bombed your whole season. That and your QBs. But I had better hopes for you, man. Fantasy Queen, Buffalonian, Beats by Ray. The one I was really off on, Knuckles Deep, Rodney. I don't know what's going on, man. I think it's your lack of running backs, but we'll get into that later. So, using Fantasy Pros, they rank from a score of 100 being the best and 59 being the worst. And the team they have at 59 score is the 3-4 Big Blue, Kevin's team. His biggest dud has been David Montgomery. He's only gotten him 60 points. And I'm sure he paid maybe 4th, 5th round pick for him. And he has not performed. But his best star or best pickup is going to be DJ Moore with 123 points. So that was a pretty smart trade on his part. What Kevin needs to do to make the Superflex, well, Kevin, you probably need some help at QB. You had Russell Wilson that went down on you, and your QBs are hurting. So I would go out there and look for a QB, but there are some out there. So up next, and then with 60 overall score, current record 1-6, worst in the league. Yikes. Biggest dud, Justin Fields, 45 points. He's a young quarterback. This is something where Dynasty that could bounce back and easily become a star one day. But so far this season, he is not. He's a dud. Then you got Derek Carr, 155 points. Who would have thought it? So that was a good pickup for you. What you need to do to make the playoffs, you need a little more help in QB. And honestly, you need CMC to get healthy so that way you can push forward. So, next, 10th, it's going to be the Boys with also an overall score of 60. He's 2-5. Biggest dud, Calvin Ridley with 71 points. He had to have been a top 3 pick for you. And 71 points ain't doing it. But best star, Aaron Rodgers with 170. What I'd recommend to do to make a stronger push to the playoffs and improve your record, you need to try to find some running backs, maybe off a waiver wire or somebody else, and you got to get yourself a better D. Rotate it out or something. Next up, Beats by Ray, 70. I know, Cody, you're probably like, what? How am I 9th? Well, this is what it says. You got a record of 3-4. There's a lot of 3-4s out there. Biggest dud, Allen Robinson, 54 points. It sucks because he's a guy that's so good, you don't want to drop him. You can't drop him because he's so good. But you really should drop him because he's just been playing like shit. But a lot of that also has to do with quarterback play. Speaking of quarterback play, your best star is Pat Mahomes, 197 points so far. And I couldn't even imagine how much higher that'd be if it wasn't for Week 7's performance, because that was atrocious. So hopefully that doesn't continue for him, and he continues to be a star for you. What you need to do is you need to go get yourself a true number one because you don't got one right now. Fantasy Queen up next at 8th. She's got a record of 5-2. Biggest dud, Antonio Gibson, 86 points. That's once again tied to where he was draft stock wise and how he's actually performed. But best star, Dak Prescott, 163. Jerry, what you need to do to make the playoffs is you need to find yourself a good running back or some better running backs. Yankees with a 77 overall, which is tied. There's two 77s. I'll talk about that one next. But Yankees also has a 3-4 record. Biggest dud, Devontae Parker. He's just not been great. But your best star, now you got Tyreek Hill, a couple of really good quarterbacks. But I would say your best star is Marquise Brown, 131 points. You could have probably gotten Marquise Brown in the 9th, 10th round of our draft. So for him to be scoring you 131 points, I would say that's a pretty damn good pickup. You got to be happy with his performance. What you need to do is maybe stream D and then pick up a stronger tight end. I believe you have Ertz, but it's going to take him a little bit to earn the scheme, so maybe he'll be there for you in playoff time. But right now, I think there's a big question mark over him. Next is me. I also had a 77. My record is also 3-4. Currently ranked 6th. Biggest dud for me is Laviska Shenault. Laviska should be doing a lot better, but because DJ Chark got hurt, and I had big expectations for him, but he's got me 59 points, and that's just not great. But my best star, and I'm so happy I was able to pick him up in the draft, is Kyle Murray. He's got me 202 points. Love it. What to do to make the playoffs? Well, I have a strategic house of cards, and I've been able to make it to where, by sheer luck, that I've played teams that maybe had their worst game when they played against me. So if you guys could continue that trend, I might be able to continue to get some wins under my belt because I'm shocked I'm 3-4. But hopefully it'll continue. Up next, Knuckles Deep. He had 79 score. He's 3-4 as well. Shocker. Currently 5th. His biggest dud, A.J. Brown with 72 points. Multiple reasons why he's a dud so far this year. Injuries, just play, but he has come on a bit, I think starting last week. So that dud could easily be a superstar by the end of the year, so it's not a bad dud to have. But best star, Josh Allen, 187 points. That's a great quarterback to have in Dynasty, so you got to be proud of that. What I would recommend doing, you have like 4 QBs. You don't need 4 QBs. You need a strong running back. I would get with some of these guys that maybe have a running back to spare or just that desperate for a QB and make a trade for them for one of them. No sense keeping them on your roster if you can do something to improve your roster. Next, Texas Kegstanders with an 80 overall. He has a 4-3 record. Biggest dud, Big Ben with 91 points. Derek, man, you traded for Big Ben, and he's a big dud. Yeah, I'm sorry, bro. That's just that one sucks. Best star, Deebo Samuel, 133 points. So he's done very, very good for you, especially where you probably got him in draft, if you even got him in draft. What to do to make your playoffs? In my opinion, you got to get yourself a quality QB, at least one that's not 43 years old or whatever Big Dud is. But I would definitely recommend some improvement there. Next, multiple scoregasms, 87. Big jump between the 4th and the 3rd. His biggest dud for Paul is going to be George Kittle, 43 points. George Kittle is doing what George Kittle does every year. He has a couple good games, and then he sits for most of the season because he's hurt all the damn time. So I would, maybe somebody will not watch this video and you can trade him and unload him for somebody better. Best star, Jamar Chase, 147. Kid's got a touchdown every single game. Last week he had over 200 yards. Freaking awesome asset. He's just been productive for you every week, and you got to be happy with that. What I would recommend is I believe you also have an extra QB, so maybe look at unloading and doing some work there. moving on. I would get tight end. So now we got shipping up to Boston and Buffalonians. They both have a 6-1 record. One is first and one is second. I'll let y'all figure out how that racked out. Biggest dud for shipping up Boston is going to be Miles Sanders. He had 64 points. Eagles are going to eagle, and they're just not a great team. So, but you have Cooper Kupp, and he had 191 points for you. Cooper Kupp's been a stud all year. So what I would do is I would upgrade Jimmy Garoppolo. I would get rid of him. He could maybe be an asset to another team, but if you're looking to make a deep push, you need somebody better than Jimmy G, who might not even be the starting quarterback by the end of the season, or at least while you're in playoffs. So then you get the Buffalonian. Biggest dud? Well, all right, I'll just tell you. Buffalonian's got 100 overall. Shipping up to Boston only had an 87. Quite the difference between the two. I can't give you a biggest dud because, I mean, you're listed as 100, so I'll just won't touch it. Best star, King Henry. King Henry's just been awesome. And what I would recommend that you do is you need to get yourself a true wide receiver one. Maybe you can do that if you get rid of one of your extra QBs, one of your extra kickers, or one of your extra defense, especially if buys are passing by. But, I mean, I can't give much advice because you got 100. My predictions the rest of the year. Now, this is going to be real important. I'll say this real quick. This is based on the fact that you have Marvel Conference and DC Conference, and each takes their own path to go to our Super Bowl. So, just so you know, this is how my predictions are of how it's going to shake out. And I'm just going to go through it real quick. Starting with number 12. It's going to be And Then the Boys, then Knuckles Deep, then Yankees, then to start the playoffs, I think Big Blue will probably lose their first game, followed by multiple scoregasms. Texas Keg Standers and Fantasy Queen will move forward. Reapers shipping up to Boston will hopefully move forward. I got to put myself over my wife, right? And then you have Beats by Ray, and I have the Buffalonian. So it'll be Beats by Ray and Buffalonian in the championship game with Buffalonian taking it all. So I've done all this talking. I have a question for y'all. Please answer me back. To you, what has been your biggest or best move so far this season, or what has been your worst? For me, it is getting Najee Harris. It was worth a first-round pick and a running back who did really well the week that I traded him. Not so much last week, but that was all of Kansas City. So my worst move, though, was trading DJ Moore. I traded DJ Moore, and a lot of you were like, who's DJ Moore? Well, DJ Moore is pretty good. So probably top 10 for the year. But, yeah, that's it. Hit me up if you like these. If you don't like them, I won't waste your time or mine. All right, we'll see y'all later. Bye. Oh, good luck the rest of the season.